Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, moni muli wanji, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jevly, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so honored that you're part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids family. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is C.B. Lee. She is here to celebrate the latest edition in the Minecraft series called The Shipwreck. Before we invite C.B. in, we want to let you know that we have a brand new Reading with Your Kids certified great read. It's called The Power of Positivity, The ABCs of a Panic, written by Ruth Malley. Ruth Malley is a certified licensed parent relationship coach. The Power of Positivity, The ABCs of a Pandemic is a children's book that aims to keep young children comforted, empowered, and informed during the pandemic. Ruth was inspired to write this book when she saw kids in her daycare struggle to deal with the realities of COVID. The Power of Positivity is a perfect book to guide your little ones through the global coronavirus pandemic and lockdown while they're learning their ABCs. The Power of Positivity features a diverse cast of characters that show kids how to practice good hygiene, wear a mask, be grateful to doctors, nurses, teachers, grocery workers, and realize the value of the helpers in our pandemic world. Check it out today, The Power of Positivity, The ABCs of a Pandemic, a great new addition for your family library and our latest Reading with Your Kids certified great read. You can read our whole review at our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Joining us right now from Los Angeles and California, she is the author of the latest Minecraft novel called The Shipwreck. Please welcome to the show, C.B. Lee. C.B., how are you?
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I'm really excited to have you on. You are the third author of a Minecraft novel that's been on the show, and I have to tell you, I'm not a video game guy, and so I'm still trying to wrap my head around. I know when the first author we had on, I said, what's Minecraft? What's this game all about? And she basically said, you kind of got to build it from scratch. It's whatever you want to make. I'm probably not, quoting her directly, but it's a lot. It's a lot up to the players as to what's going on in the game.
Yeah, it's an amazing game because it's such a sandbox. The game literally and figuratively gives you the building blocks to build your own adventure, however you want to make it. Whether you want to go on quests and slay a dragon, or build an intricate model of Lothlorien from Lord of the Rings, or whatever. It is so profoundly creative that you can do anything. You play it as a survival sort of horror game. You could play it as a social game where you're spending time with your friends. And there's such an amazing opportunity for creativity within it. And people have done amazing things where they've created worlds or used it as a storytelling platform. And what I love about it is purely the amount of, worlds. I think creating worlds, especially as a young person, is really powerful and fun, and that's kind of the aspect that I wanted to take into my book, where, these kids come into Minecraft for all very different reasons. They all enjoy different aspects of the game, and then they learn to play together, and the beauty and joy of having an experience with your friends where you're creating something new.
Yeah. You referred to Minecraft as this beautiful sandbox. And I'm old enough to, I remember being, it was a long time ago, but I remember being in that sandbox and so many times you were there and it was just sand, but you could spend hours and hours and hours there, just like you said, creating out of nothing. And that's a great analogy, I think, from what I'm hearing about Minecraft. It's this place that just doesn't have definition, and you just kind of create it as you go along.
Yeah, like there's enough structure there and rules that you can play with what you're given. You can change them literally in the sandbox. You can build castles. You can turn it into the setting for an elaborate play. You can have battles with your friends. Whatever your style is, there's a lot of opportunity there.
So tell us about the adventure that you created in the Shipwreck. What are we going to encounter?
Sure. So it follows Jake, Tank, and Emily. They're three kids who are very different. They live in the same apartment building, and they discover an abandoned Minecraft server in the community center by their apartment complex. And this community center is just like this falling apart abandoned place that, it's kind of a little they meet because they're doing community service. So at first they're like, I want nothing to do with you. But they realize they have in common this game. And while they're playing on this server, they discover it's not just a regular game. There's a mystery here. There's clues. And they discover this secret underwater kingdom with magic and mermaids. And it's very new and different. And part of the race to solve the mystery is the fact that at the end of the summer, the community center is going to be destroyed, and along with it, the server itself. So they're trying to figure out, they're trying to play the game and also figure out how to, finish it and save the game and their center, essentially. Wow,
that is so cool. Where did the inspiration for this idea come from?
A lot of the interactions came from playing games with my own friends, and I've always been fascinated with kind of the underwater aspect of the game, like the fortresses and the guardians and the magic of, in vanilla Minecraft there are not mermaids. There's no, and I've also fantastically been very drawn to Journey to Atlantis and all of that mythology. So my inspiration came from that, and I was like, well, what if there's a world that you could explore that had its own set of rules and monsters and mysteries? And that's kind of where that started. So wanting to have this incredible realm to explore, and then thinking about the characters, and I grew up in East LA, so there's a very specific real aspect to where these kids live and the kind of lives they have, and they all have their own issues, and they're struggling to define themselves in a world. And it's very you're 14, everything is changing around you, and all of these kids are on the cusp of starting high school, and so everything's about to change, and they're kind of at this crossroad of it's such a profound experience, I think, just being at that age where you're just what do I do? How do I define myself? And that's kind of where the heart of the book is, I think.
Yeah. As I look back at that time in my life, it was profound. You're mentioning that everything around you is changing. The reality is that you are changing, and your perception of everything is changing, and it can be quite frightening and also quite exciting, I think.
Yeah. That's the magic of everything that I've written from Ben 10 to Star Wars to my superhero series. It is all about that pivotal moment. Why I love writing for children and young adults, because you're tapping into that moment of how do I decide who I'm going to be?
I'm wondering if there was something that happened in your life at that age that has so fascinated you that you keep revisiting it.
I think there's a lot of it's interesting when I think about it now, because I feel generationally there's so many different challenges now, and when I was 12, 13, 14, that was kind of the wild, wild west of the internet. And so it was a radically different world where we were literally defining and creating what the internet was going to look like. And, we were creating games and learning HTML. And I, as a child, think now it would be, the equivalent of like, wow, like, I don't know, when I was a kid growing up in the 90s, my parents would never like, wow, we would never let our children run around the neighborhood unsupervised or like you. And so the amount of where I'm seeing now with parents and their kids being like, oh, well, our kids, we have to be aware of what's on the internet and being out there. And when I was a kid, the internet was this huge unknown. So building those places felt very special to me, and being a part of the building. And I think what's unique about Minecraft is that I think Minecraft kind of came, like the early versions of it came out when I was older enough to like understand like the coding aspect of it, the fun of it. And I started playing it actually as a young adult. But as a game for kids, there's so much, it's really fun because it's kind of like, it's very 3D spatial. It's like you have Legos that are fantastical and they have magical powers, these Legos, and you can build, like just seeing what kids build nowadays is so cool. Cause I was like, wow, I wish I had magic Legos growing up. And the sheer amount of like, you could play this epic game with your friends who are all over the world at the same time without having to like call and coordinate people like, okay, we're hanging out at this time at this place. And I think that's kind of beautiful.
Yeah. That's really fascinating. I never thought of the fact that in a huge way, the internet, this thing that everybody takes for granted, I forget that, when my wife and I were married, it really, it existed, but it wasn't something that was being used by most people. And I had never thought about the fact that in a lot of ways, 14 and 15-year-olds, built the internet, and at least they may not have been writing the code, but they were driving and letting folks who were writing the codes know where they should go.
Right. It's about like, how are people using it, like how are people communicating? And I think it was one of the like, especially with children's books too. Like I remember as a kid being like super into like I don't know, like Lord of the Rings and like Tamora Pierce books and like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And so like before, if you were in Star Trek, but I'm just going to use Star Trek as an example because Star Trek has been around, since the 60s. And so
since I was a kid.
Right. But like the difference between Star Trek fandom in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s were like to be a fan and to hang out and talk to other fans and to have all these like fan experiences where you're excited about, everyone's excited about the same thing and you're sharing and creating. It took place in person, like at conventions and mail-in scenes and newsletters. And then with the advent of the internet, it really, the access point shrunk. So you could now, from your own living room, talk to thousands of other people. So before you were like, could go to a convention and be like, I'm so excited, I'm here with hundreds of people who are excited about the same thing. And then now, kind of like the late 90s, I think 2000s era kind of was when like, oh, we can use the internet as a tool for communication to organize like these fun like fandom exchanges and trivia things and like the proliferation of creation and storytelling and I saw that a lot as like a kid and just being excited about like video games and sharing them with other people in like the early days of like, oh, I'm gonna go play video games with my friends, so we're all going to like have a LAN party and like hook up our internet landlines together, and so we're all in the same connection because this is before the advent of wireless. So you had to physically like, and there's the drama of like, oh, well, you can't be on the internet if mom's going to be on the phone. So like, it is, the 90s and early 2000s were a very interesting time because it was just, things changed so quickly. So like as a kid, I watched VHS tapes and I like would listen to cassette tapes and try to record songs off the radio and make mixtapes. And then it went to CDs, and then it went to iPod like libraries and iTunes, and it changes very quickly. So my memory of my childhood and what things are now feel like I imagine just any person who looks back and like, wow, epics of history are very marked by these kind of technological advances. But I think that time period is unique because so much happened at once. Whereas I think in the past 10 years, kind of smartphones and tablets, there's been kind of like a more linear plateau of like, okay, this is kind of the expected advancement. Whereas like we went from like, dial up, like, landline phones to like, like just exponentially, just the sheer technology of it. Which is, just an interesting time.
Yeah, fascinating. You shared with me, and you just alluded to the fact that you've written Star Wars stories and Minecraft. As an author, do you enjoy writing, based on somebody else's kind of original idea, and it's taking those ideas and then making them your own?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Like I said, this is a sandbox. So I've written graphic novels for the Ben 10. It's a Cartoon Network show, and so I've written original graphic novels for them. And that was a lot of fun. It's, working in a known universe where you have specific characters, but like the story is yours, so you get to come up with what happens. And working in the Star Wars universe was a fantastic opportunity. I was really honored to get to work with the team because, having loved Star Wars since I was a child, now getting to be a part of the universe was a huge honor, and getting to put my stamp on it, so to speak, and just create a character was so much fun. But there is a lot of specific, like, just knowing, like, okay, all right, you have within the universe, these are the items that you can play with, and then these are the known factors, which does, I think it just changes the creative process. And there's a different process than when I'm writing my own original work. That's purely a world that I've created. So, I have a superhero series called the Sidekick Squad. And so in that series, it's kind of like the whole world, I had to come up with the rules of how the superpowers work, what happens, how does the political, social, cultural dynamics change. And I had to start from zero. So there is a lot of like foundation and ground, like, my first book took me about like 2 years to write in that world. And I'm still working in that universe. There's 3 books out. Not Your Sidekick came out in 2016. And, there's 3 books and there's another one forthcoming. But just the world, just as a craft, like as an author creating, there are some times that I think that like having specific limits makes it, inspires you to use your creativity in a different way. So it's a lot of fun working in known universes, and I'm excited for more in that realm. And I'm also excited to write original fiction. There's just a lot of, it's just different apples and oranges. There's different challenges.
Well, you're doing different things. It's a lot of fun. And like you said, you're using different parts of your brain. If you went to the gym, you're an athlete, you went to the gym and you only did bicep curls, well, you'd have these giant biceps, but it would look pretty weird on those little chicken legs that you've come up with. So I think it's important to exercise all the parts of your imagination. How would you, I know there are parents out there who are listening, teachers out there who are listening, who have kids who are super creative. They're into creating things on Minecraft or other different platforms. How would you suggest that they encourage their kids to express their creativity?
Through Minecraft or just in general?
And just in general, or in Minecraft, however.
Sure. I feel like just engaging with your students. I used to teach middle grades, so I had a lot of fun coming up with practical or like just as activities that would engage different parts of the brain, like you said. So like for people who are like physical kinetic learners, okay, this is an activity where we're going to run around and you're literally going to be the embodied, I don't know, this is an ecology class, so we're going to learn, are you a rabbit, are you a fox, are you a deer in this ecosystem, and how does that, it's literally a game of tag that I invented to show the different aspects of what roles predators, animals, and prey animals play in the ecosystem. And that's a lot of fun, and there's different ways you can challenge students who specialize in different aspects of learning. And within video games, I think that brings an opportunity to engage people in a way that's like fun and exciting, but also there's so many amazing resources for Minecraft learners. or like to learn within Minecraft, like you can have a student build a structure. There's elements of Minecraft where using the redstone in the game, it's literally coding, where you have to learn how to build something and code it. And there's it's really fun to like make an invention work in Minecraft. You're writing a program and running it, and why is it broken? Okay, you forgot to close a parentheses in a program, but like, okay, in Minecraft you didn't include this line here, or it didn't use this key part of the puzzle, right? And there's I think as a parent or a teacher, seeing what your child is excited about, your student is excited about, and then thinking about, okay, how can I relate that back to what we want to learn? Or thinking about like, okay, my student's really excited about, loves sharks. Just for example, my child loves sharks and watches Shark Week all the time. Okay, so if you're going to turn that into a teaching moment, be like, okay, I'm going to take this passion and let's talk about the role sharks play in the world's ecosystem. I'm going to take them to an aquarium so they can meet a live shark, or like what's the impact of overfishing on sharks. And there's elements there, but I also want to say like there's don't forget to have fun, like just that's the point of a game, is that it is a game that is designed to be like engaging and you can learn from it. There's as a child, I just remember like, I had a lot of the hobbies that were like, my parents like, you love art? Okay, now we need you to be the very best at art. And you're going to go to art school and be the very best. And then I was like, now I don't like art anymore.
Yes. I think I was guilty of that on a number of occasions with my kids. Thankfully, I didn't scar them too much. They still call and visit us. It sounds like Minecraft is such a, as you said, such a wonderful sandbox and a place where imagination can really take hold. I'd love to challenge the teachers that are listening to kind of check it out and learn a little bit and see if there's some ways that you can apply that in your classrooms, especially if you have a kid who isn't as excited about book learning as they are about video games.
There's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of fantastic resources, even on like the official Mojang site. There's like resources that you can download that are like, okay, I built an example of a coral reef, a shipwreck, and these are actual things that you can download and put in your game and students can visit them. Or within a game, just because there's so much remote teaching and learning nowadays, it could be a fun environment. Okay, instead of Zoom, we're going to have our lesson in Minecraft today. So that could be a fun opportunity. That could be a lot of fun. I think you might have just answered the question. One of the things I was thinking about, Shipwreck sounds like such a great story and adventure. Is there a way for kids to kind of download that story and then play with it in Minecraft? So while I was writing the novel, I created a lot of the elements in the novel on my own personal game and server that I play with my friends. And it's something that it's a long process because I'm also writing another book right now, but I am hoping to write or like create resources for people and have them on my website. So if they want to interact with the actual puzzles in the game, they can go to my website. But it's a work in progress, so it's not done yet. But I think a fun thing I might do in the interim is create like discussion questions that teachers can use to follow along, and like activities that they can play with their students or use with their students to like, okay, in the novel, Jake discovers this particular riddle. How would you solve it? And how would you build it? And what would you do if you were the game creator? And so stuff like that is, I think you can do that with many texts too. Like there's elements where in Minecraft that you can build, like, okay, now I want you to build, here's an exercise, build a setting, build this particular building from the book and using the materials that you have. That could be a fun resource. But yes, there's many works and projects. I have a lot of ideas, and I hope that I would be able to complete this one.
Yeah.
just to have for fun.
Well, that really is exciting, and I love the ideas that you've put out there, the challenges that you put out there to parents and to teachers to kind of think more creatively and use the resources that are already exciting kids so much to, kind of help their education. I think it's just such a very different learning experience. Instead of having kids sit down and memorize this date in history and that battle and that president, and instead challenge them to get into the minds of those events, get into the minds of those people, and ask them what they would do if they were in the same kind of situation. And I think that helps them kind of really understand it better than just doing the memorization.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like video games, they do get like a bad reputation for like, you're like, my parents were very like, be careful of how much time you're spending like just playing video games. Hi, Mom, I'm writing video game books playing them. But there's so much, like when you were just talking about like, learning about historical events, like, oh my gosh, the amount of weird historical facts I've learned just from playing video games. And like, all right, play Age of Empires, play Civilization. Now you are in charge of like, what would you do if someone invaded your, like, do you build like a fortress? Like, what are the resources? Like, what are the technological advances you need? There's so many video games that are like, that do challenge people to think critically and develop specific skills. And yes, everything in moderation. Like, don't forget to go outside. Don't forget to but like every new, I think it's not only a game, but a tool that you can use. And to think about like, are you playing a lot of, pilot or flight simulators? How is this similar to, or are you playing a lot of games that look at like the political machinations of like, are you going to understand the Napoleonic Wars better because you played this game? Who knows? But at least it's fun.
That's been my thought all along. The internet is a tool. And just like a hammer, you can use a hammer to build something, you can use a hammer to destroy something. It's just in the way that you choose to use it. And I love that you are choosing to use technology to really kind of expand people's imaginations and entertain them with this brand new novel, the brand new Minecraft novel, The Shipwreck. Where can folks go online to learn more about you, what you've written, maybe sign up for newsletters so they'll be the first ones to know when those elements of Shipwreck are available to download?
Sure. My website is cb-lee.com. My Instagram is CBLEE_CBLEE. That's double the trouble. So I say it twice. And that's me on Twitter and Instagram. And folks can sign up for my newsletter on my website or reach out to me on social media. I'm around. I also have a Twitch account, but I haven't streamed anything yet because I'm not done building the world that I want to stream.
And there's another social media platform I have to find out. Well, we've had a great time speaking to the author of the brand new Minecraft novel, The Shipwreck, C.B. Lee. Hey, Carrie, thanks so much for being with us tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guests will be Kat Michaels and Rosie Russell, here to celebrate Between Sam and Me. That's the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so very wonderful. Of course, want to thank our guest, C.B. Lee. Be sure to check out This Shipwreck. Also want to thank my team, Alejandra Doherty, Fatima Khan. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. I want to thank my doggy, Augie, for having my back here in the studio. But most of all, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.